And so like once we understood the way the show was received and we had a sense that we were doing okay and that it was probably going to return, like we had a bit more confidence at the end of season 2 and season 3 and that kind of thing. But we were just in such a darkness, so to speak.
I know.
In that first season.
I know. Yeah. My name is Anna Silk. For 6 seasons, I played Bo on the hit TV series Lost Girl. I am so happy you are here for the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast to take a trip down memory lane with me, the amazing cast, and some very special guests. I'm so glad to finally be able to say the family is back together again. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast. This is it, you guys. This is episode 13 in season 1. I'm going to bring my co-host in right away because who can wait any longer for Miss Zoie Palmer.
Hello!
Thank you again for doing this.
Oh, it's Zoie. My pleasure. I'm thrilled to be back.
I know. It's thrilling to have you. And I have to say.
Oh my God, so much thrill.
So it's only thrill.
It's all thrill all day.
Period. That's it.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about episode 13.
Yeah.
From season 1.
Yeah.
Which was titled Bloodlines. It was written by Michelle Lovretta and directed by Rob Lieberman. And
both good people. Very
good people.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions watching? How did you feel?
It was crazy because there was it was like a lot of healing in different ways.
Right? Yes, that's true. There was a lot of healing. Yes. Yeah. Well, where it left off at the end of 12 is when Saskia, she's still known as Saskia to Bo at this point, comes in and like takes over Dyson in the cop shop, and then Bo comes in, breathes chi back into him for the first time. How I do, which was like looked like this, just me breathing in Chris's face, but it brought him back to life. And that's so yes, there's healing, a lot of healing at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, and then of course a lot of discovery for your character.
I know. I feel like okay. I didn't remember anything about this episode. I mean, I remembered roughly what happened, but watching it, I just loved the intensity of it and the pace. Because like in the very beginning, as soon as Dyson says she's your mom, there's like this urgent pace through the whole thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Which was really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I remember it's so funny because, you forget about the scenes you shoot until you watch them. And the scene where they rush the ash in and I launch myself on top of him.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing in the episode.
And it's so funny because like in the world that we're in, that made total sense. But like if you were at the hospital and a doctor flung themselves on top of the moving gurney to do chest compressions, you might wonder about their abilities.
You might, or you would just envy their commitment.
Yes, yes.
Because I have to say, like that was my favorite, like visual of the episode.
Yeah,
to see Lauren straddling the ash. It just showed. Well, your athleticism.
Sure.
We all know and love.
I mean, I really just wanted to get that in there somewhere.
Yeah. You were like, Bo can't straddle everybody. I have to.
It's my turn.
Why not the ash?
Yeah.
No, but it was cool. It was cool to see that visual of Lauren's intent. Like I loved all the stuff in the lab.
I loved that lab, that set.
Yes, I know.
That lab was, I think, just season 1. Was it not? It may have gone into season 2.
That lab was huge.
It was huge. And it was just the, what I love so much about it is the contrast between that set and every other set on the show was often so dark and so dim and so kind of moody and sexy in lots of ways, right? Like that was the vibe of the show, was the kind of dark, moody, sexy vibe. And then you've got this really clean, white, clinical set of the lab. The hospital lab, if you will. And I really loved the play between those two kind of worlds,
Yeah. You know what? You're right. I don't remember when that lab disappeared. And then what did they give you, like a a tray with some with some beakers on it. Like what happened after that to Lauren?
A gurney with all the accoutrement.
Yeah.
No, there was another lab. It was totally different. I think there was 3 in total by the time the show had its 5-year, whatever, 6-year run. Like, I think there ended up being, there was an evolution.
There was a lot of internal restructuring in the
Yeah,
Fae.
I think I was doing science in my bathroom by the end.
Yeah.
But
with a kit that you ordered.
Yeah, from Amazon.
That lab, I actually remembered when you bring that lab up that we used to, like between takes, I remember we would look in like your little fridges in that lab, or like there'd be like little things growing.
Yeah, they had made jars with all sorts of stuff. There was mushroom fungus in some jars, and there was like bits of styrofoam that they had turned into things. There was like Skittles. It was
Skittles.
I don't know. I think there was some Skittles.
There were some Skittles.
Yeah.
But you know what was great about that lab? Like to film that sequence of like the Ash rushing in on a gurney, like to be able to have that kind of like.
So I mean, we had the room.
Move. Yeah. There was so much room. I didn't even think about that, but I just thought about how much I loved watching everything in that lab in this episode.
Well, the thing that was interesting little tidbit about that lab was the floor.
It had little holes.
Yeah. And I always had little heels that would go into the little holes. And then at some point,
smart choice.
Every episode, I would get stuck in a hole in the floor. Yeah. And oddly, and this is a complete departure, but I'm going to throw it in as trivia. When the show that I did afterwards, Dark Matter, was shot in that exact same studio. Mm-hmm. And that floor was used the entire set.
Did your character wear heels?
Yeah, but they were thick, her heels. Thick. So I never got lost.
You were wise to it.
But I saw that floor and went,
I remember I came to tour the Dark Matter set.
Did you? Yeah.
And it was just so cool to walk through the whole space where Lost Girl stuff was set up and have it be
was so bizarre because it was like months, like where we wrapped Lost Girl and that studio got, and so it was very, very surreal. Anyway,
for you,
complete departure, but the floor was a through line. Yeah.
The floor was a through line.
Yeah.
I loved, well, first of all, everyone was so good in this episode. I feel like everyone was just so good. Inga, that's who I have here. First of all, that headbutt was vicious.
Yeah.
Actually, in watching the episode, I took a little screenshot of it and sent it to her, like a little video, because I was like, man, she was so. The thing about Inga, I mean, she's gorgeous and sexy and all of those things, of course, but she really gave Aoife a sense of being mentally ill.
Yep.
Like it wasn't just, I'm bad.
She's a beautiful actor, Inga Cadronel. Actually.
She is.
Lovely actor.
She really is. Yeah. I mean, because, I think when you are as beautiful as she is and then playing like bad, it would be very easy to just do it on a surface level and it would still be great. But Inga never did that. Like she gave Saskia this sense of like you felt sad.
Yeah.
Her,
Well, it was a slightly unhinged sort of vibe that was with her all the time.
Yes.
Like she always seemed just this side of okay. You know what I mean? Like it was a little unhinged.
Yeah. And then she'd say things to Bo in this episode that would kind of break your heart. I mean, it was meant to break Bo's.
Yes.
And it did.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that really struck me in this episode too was how like you see everyone, how much they love Bo and how much they're trying to protect her. And she's still really believing and hopeful in her mother.
Sure.
It made me,
yeah.
Who wouldn't be? I mean, but
yeah, the mother wound, right?
Like the mother wound. I know. And in real life, I mean, Inga's actually a couple years younger than me, I think. But that was the beauty of the Fae world is that she could be my mom. You know, I actually believed us as mother and daughter.
Totally. Yeah.
I know. The mother wound. Ugh.
The mother wound. Yeah. I mean, what a great thing for them to explore with your character, the writers, because, could it be any more relatable? And so here we are in this world that is larger than life and full fantasy. And you've got a mom who is essentially looks the same age as you. And we go there.
Yeah.
But the sort of universal story is that of the mother-child sort of dynamic, right? That we can all connect to. And that's what this show, I think, did.
Yes. And I just loved how, Bo was so angry at Dyson. Bo was angry at Trick. She wanted answers and was starting to push at the people that have loved her the most ever in her life to try to get that answer, because that is what you're saying. It's universal. We kind of push into the people that we love the most
who won't leave.
Who won't leave. I know, Bo. And for everyone listening, like, you have to remember, we had not had an audience at this point.
No.
Right? In this point of the storytelling, which was the end of our season, we didn't know if we were coming back.
No.
We didn't know.
No.
We knew we were telling the end of this story for this season. We knew that Michelle and everyone in that room had created this beautiful arc for everybody, and we were launching into the possibility of more storytelling, but we didn't know if we were coming back.
Yeah.
Right?
We didn't know anything. We didn't know
anything. No one had seen it.
No.
We hadn't seen it.
No.
We knew that it mattered. And I don't know. It was really interesting to watch.
It was a cool time in that way because you don't get to go back to that, right? Like once that first season was the only time. Sorry, I don't know what just fell.
Stand by, everybody.
I'm sure it's fine.
Something has fallen.
It's fine. Everything's fine. It was something in a closet.
Okay. That's a bit odd. We'll have to investigate that.
Well, I think I have something hanging on a hook in a closet, and the thing fell off the hook.
Okay.
And I nearly had a heart attack on air. But it's fine. My heart's intact. It's ticking away. I think everything's okay. I have literally no idea what we're talking about. Oh, yes, I do. So, you don't get to go backwards, right? So we didn't know what we didn't know in that first season.
Yeah.
And so, like, once we understood the way the show was received and we had a sense that we were doing okay and that it was probably going to return, like, we had a bit more confidence at the end of season 2 and season 3 and that kind of thing. But we were just in such a darkness, so to speak, in that first season.
I know. Yeah. And there's something very, very special about a new, fresh.
Sorry, I'm still laughing at me.
I mean, personally, I think you probably have to clean your closet. I mean, that's what comes to mind because I've been doing this massive clean in my house. And so I just think
you clean your closet.
Her closet. I have been. Have you ever read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up? It came out like a decade ago. I'm very behind, and that's all I've been doing.
I just want you to know that this right now that you guys are all watching is exactly the types of conversations that we were having.
I know. I know. And then they call.
Okay, listen, I have a book for you. I'm going to give it to you at lunch. And it's about the life-changing thing of cleaning your own closet out. AnnaSilk.com.
And then they'd call action. And then we would be like, Bo,
So is it specifically you got to clean out a closet or is just any cleaning?
Oh,
I'm very clean.
Zoe is very clean. I will tell you, when I think Zoie Palmer, I think clean.
It's literally the next
first thing I think clean, with a slightly messy closet. But anyway, yes, beginner's mentality. When I don't know if this happens to you.
This is derailed.
Oh God.
Yeah.
If this if young actors come to you for advice, one of the things I always say to them is like, where you are right now, you'll never be here again. Like, you might not have the hours logged on set.
Yeah.
But you have, okay, Zoe and I can't stop laughing.
No,
this
it's okay.
Definitely happened on set.
A lot.
A lot of laughing. But there is something beautiful about being new and not knowing. You can't, you're right. You can't go back there.
No, you don't get to go backwards, right? You don't get to do redos. So I look back on that sometimes and I'm almost envious is strong, but I certainly, I have that special place in my heart for the time when we were all together and none of us knew.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
There's
Like
something
no one
about
had
that.
seen it. No one had.
Yeah. We were just
I
doing
know.
our thing and going, oh, hopefully it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Best memories from filming this episode. Does anything specific come to mind?
Trying to remember. I mean, that scene in the lab was pretty large and in charge.
It
'Cause I
was
have a
large and in charge.
whole, like, I have a thing with the ash, and then you come in, and then you and I have a whole conversation, and I gave you a rock.
And a kiss.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
not a rock. I say take this key, but it's a rock. And even this time around,
Wait a second.
when I gave it to you in the scene, I was like, okay, that's the key. So I give you the key. But when I was watching it, I was like, that's a rock. Yeah. I don't know what door that goes in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But then we have a big kiss. I go, just be safe or come back alive or don't die or something really special to you before you go off and do your magical things.
Put that rock somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that scene feeling very kind of harried because there was a lot of, like Hale comes in and Kenzie's there and the Ash is on life support or whatever. And like, I'm giving you rock keys and we're kissing. And it's like,
I'm covered in weapons. And
yes.
Yeah, there was no rock unturned, so to speak, in that scene. But I have to tell people listening in that scene, Zoie, you had to deliver a lot of stuff to me.
Yeah.
Right? You always did that so well. Like, I think I took it for granted at the time. Like, okay, Zoe's going to say all that stuff that we need to hear.
Right.
I mean, I was more interested than that. But
here she goes again.
You just could rattle it off in a way that felt so seamless. It was never stilted. I'm not just talking about knowing the lines. I'm just talking about there was a seamlessness with you as Lauren, just in that
I was
lab.
really excited about this role because I'd never played, as an actor, you always imagine like there's always the standard things like how would I play a prosecuting lawyer or how would I play like the kind of when we're daydreaming about different roles that would be fun to try. And I had always wanted to play a doctor, and I would watch these shows where they would be like going down the hallway and spouting off all of the things that they need to do to stop the bleeding and whatever,
Yeah.
And so
there's
I did
something
kind of get excited about it.
Yeah. And the pressure, like everyone's under the same pressure.
Yeah.
That's what makes it exciting.
It so helps in a scene because you have built-in stakes, right?
Totally.
I mean, like that's the freebie for an actor. Like you have to find the stakes in some scenes that aren't where they're not really obvious, right? You've got to sort of find them because otherwise the scene falls flat. And in a scene where you're saving someone's life or you're going off to war or whatever you're doing and I'm kissing you goodbye. And like the stakes are just right there for you. You get to play the urgency.
And you don't even really have to play it. It's there,
that's right? It's all there. It's infused and you just have to be present and open and,
Yeah. And there's even an extra sharpness in the crew during that stuff because they know that there's so many moving parts and that they have to be.
Oh, it's so like that's the thing that unfortunately the audience doesn't see. The artistry going on to capture these scenes is extraordinary. Like we're watching camera departments walking backwards and jumping over each other and, trying to like
guiding each other.
They're doing magical things just to capture the moment. It is kind of extraordinary to from our perspective to watch them do that sometimes. It is for me anyway.
It is.
I know you totally don't care, but I really do.
I couldn't care less. I mean, whoever. Who?
No. Somebody shot us. I don't know.
Yeah, there was some camera people there. I think no.
I suppose.
Yes. No, I was in awe of
amazing.
every department, frankly. But
I know.
What was the most difficult or challenging part? I mean, you were really in the lab.
Yeah. I mean, it was that scene as well. I think like it was a challenging scene to shoot. I remember, we did it in pieces as well, and we did it a lot of times.
Yeah.
I jumped on him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clay and I got to know each other that day. Quite a bit.
Man, I love Clay.
I know, he's great.
He was so great. I love the scene between him actually and Trick in this episode.
Yep.
I love that they were outside. That was kind of interesting to see them outside, really brightly lit. because that wasn't what we were used to seeing.
Right.
That struck me. I think the most challenging part for me was eating the cookie because, and you're going to know why. Because at that time in my life, everything had to be gluten-free. I was very hot and
At
cold
that
with being
time in your life.
Yeah, now I'm hot and cold with everything.
Are
Now
you?
I am.
So now if we did the ice cream scene, you would just have ice
You'd
cream?
have actual ice cream. I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Zoe. And that cookie, I remember you and I eating pizza in a scene and it was gluten-free. I just remember looking over at you and you were like, because it's like, you got to really chew. Anyway, the cookie Inga gave me was gluten-free and I started eating it. Bo eats 3 times in this episode. And one of them is that cookie. And it was so dry and there was so much of it. Like the more I chewed, the more it grew. That was a challenge.
I think you should just never say that sentence ever again. Probably.
You know what? I think it actually should go into the clip as the teaser for this episode.
Yeah. If you ever write your own book, just.
Yeah. That's the title of my book, my memoir.
That's what I'm saying.
The more I choose, the more I grew.
I know that I ate a lot of things I never would have eaten were it not for you.
I know. And I really love you for that.
Yeah.
And I also apologize.
Well, gluten-free pizza shouldn't be a thing.
I know.
Yeah. I just think if you're gluten-free and a lot
just
of people
don't eat pizza.
Just don't bother.
Yeah.
It's not pizza.
No. What else could you put it on though? I mean, really. What could you
put sauce and
cheese?
Well, it's the cheese is a problem, isn't it? Is it? No.
No, the gluten is in the crust.
It's just the bread, right? It's just the bread. Yeah, you could put cheese and sauce on just about anything.
Like what? I guess vegetables.
Well, anything that wouldn't absorb it.
That could be anything.
Like a cucumber.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Challenging part, eating the cookie because, and I just remembered how much I tortured you by making you eat so many different things.
Yeah. The ice cream was by far the worst because I didn't know until I licked it.
Wait, did I eat the ice cream? I don't even think I ate the ice cream in that scene. You're talking about the car wash scene, right?
Yeah.
That was season 4.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there. But that was I'm still not over it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was so excited too.
To eat the ice cream.
I was like, oh, we're going to get to eat ice cream. And of course, when you shoot a scene, you shoot it a million times. We were going to be eating ice cream for hours, I thought. And we did eat it for hours and hours.
But it was
not good. It was styrofoam and some other thing. I don't know what that was.
Some melty thing that kind of turned to water, I remember.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
you didn't eat it because you were washing a car. It was me and who? Dyson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly you. Anyway, watching me eat that cookie, I remembered how dry it was. And then I started to remember all the other things that I made you eat over every season of Lost Girl.
We should just do it like a montage of
I think I need to I think I need to take you out for a long dinner.
A meal.
And we eat everything that you want.
A palate cleanser.
Yes.
Of just a bowl of gluten and
dairy.
Yeah.
Just yeah. I think that's what we should do.
We should do.
Okay. The last scene.
Yeah.
Between Kenzie and I got very emotional watching that because first of all, it was the last scene we filmed. They tend to do that when filming, right? Your last scene in the show or the season, you tend to film last on the last day of filming.
Well, they did on Lost Girl, which was lovely.
It's lovely. And they really do that for us. I mean, I think. Because they're not going to be like, film this beautiful scene and then the next day have like inserts of Bo's hands and then they're like, okay, we're wrapped for the season. Like it's, it just doesn't have.
Well, they certainly did that on the very last scene of this entire show.
Oh, the entire show, yes.
And that was really cool.
It was so cool. But they did it in this season too, because I remember the last day of filming, last scene, I remember holding that amulet and, I kind of had to hold it up and then like stare off to the side, which feels very unnatural, but it looks great on camera. You get the visual of what the story you're trying to tell. But I remember like watching it yesterday when I watched this episode, my heart started beating because I remember it beating so fast. And I love Bo's whole monologue. And then, she's saying, talking about Trick and saying, I thought he was one of the good guys. And it cuts to Trick literally bleeding for her.
Yeah.
And then Dyson, who has now the Norn. We haven't even talked about the Norn, which we have to talk about the Norn.
Yes, that's
Kate
huge.
Trotter, who was, honestly, I have thought about her over the years in that role because she was so, like, you believed she sat in that chair for 100 years or whatever. You know, maybe that's not a very flattering thing to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, this is what happens, guys, with Zoie and I. Is that one of us, usually me, says something like that. And then Zoie very quickly points out with a quick look how ridiculous. What I just said was
special about her was that you really never lost sight of that she just sat there for 100 years.
When I think Kate Trotter, I think she sits for 100 years. No, she was phenomenal. And
she was
really so good. And I loved her. I loved Dyson in that scene, him going to her and her really realizing what she could take from him.
Mm-hmm.
And, in Beau's monologue, you see him wolfing out in the woods.
Yes.
She's still, Beau is like, it was just such a great ending,
Yeah.
It was such a great, strong ending to such a beautiful season.
It really was.
Do you see this tree behind me?
I mean, I see a tree.
Right here. So for everyone watching, there's a tree. This tree goes through my house.
Do you mean like
it goes through my house? Yes, like the Norn. Except it's not in my living room. I don't have a chair beside it, but it actually goes through our bottom deck and top deck, and we have our house built, like the deck is built around this tree. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Does it come inside of the interior?
No. It's the outdoor deck spaces.
Got it.
So basically I'm the Norn is what
I think we all knew that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big reveal here.
Yeah. Finally, it's come out all these years later. Yes, that's right. So that was, obviously in terms of plot points, massive.
Huge.
Yeah.
And you know what? I had forgotten it happens in season 1. I don't know why. It wasn't until I started watching. I was like, oh my God, Dyson goes to the Norn. He's going to go to the Norn. And I just thought, it was such good storytelling, this whole episode. The house that Inga and I filmed in, by the way, which you did not film in.
No.
When Beau goes to find her mother, she's surrounded by all those shirtless men.
That's right.
Who basically are, the way it really works is that there's a bunch of shirtless men standing around the craft service table, drinking coffee and chatting while shirtless. And then I come in, I'm like, hey, shirtless guys. And then we do a scene and then they leave. And they were lovely and made good choices at the craft
I just
table,
hope they found shirts since then.
And I hope so too, because they'd be chilly.
Well, it's December.
It's December.
I mean, you're in LA. You're fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm only putting a shirt on right now for this podcast. I'm shirtless otherwise.
99% of the time.
Yeah. Totally. I get a lot of looks. No. So that house though was a single dwelling. Like people lived there.
Right.
And it was like a labyrinth, that house. It was it was one room after the next. There was some quirks about that house. There was a lot of mannequins in it. So
it was not a set of any kind. It was a house.
No, it was someone's home.
Right.
There's a lot of mannequins and a lot of birds. It was interesting.
It's interesting because we put up, I don't, and probably you don't, but people do.
Build the sets.
But no, put up scarecrows to scare birds away.
Oh.
And
the birds were caged birds that lived there.
I was imagining just mannequins everywhere with birds on them.
No, mannequins were separate than the birds.
Okay.
It was a very eccentric home.
Sure.
It was like a fairy tale. It was like a fairy tale home. It was
really interesting. Perfect for our show.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. And the couple were so lovely. I met them that day. They were so generous to let us film there because it looked incredible.
Were they wearing their shirts?
They had shirts on.
Oh, good.
No pants.
Yeah.
But shirts. No, they had pants on. This poor couple might listen to this. I'll be like, oh.
They're like, we were wearing pants.
We're pretty sure we were wearing pants. Yeah, I just was so excited to watch this episode.
It was great. It was really full.
It was so full. It didn't stop. It just didn't stop. And I forgot how exciting an end it was. And this whole season, of course, I've watched every episode this season, and it has been really special. for me to do that and to talk to each cast member and have so many great memories. People are loving listening to this.
Oh, it's so cool to do it. It's so fun.
So cool to do it.
Yeah, it's like close enough that I can still really connect to it, but it's been enough time that it's just really fun to look back on it now too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then next time we do this, the rewatch, you come here, we'll sit by this tree for 100 years.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we'll do another rewatch.
Without our shirts on.
Yeah. And then we'll do that rewatch shirtless.
Yeah.
And
rewatch squared.
Okay. I think that's it. I think we've touched all the things.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm sorry.
I love you, Zoe.
I love you.
I love Bo and Lauren. I can't wait to see where this goes in season 2.
Yeah, I know.
Because I kind of can't remember how it all unfolds. I do remember us getting back together and breaking up a lot at some point in this series.
There was a lot of breakups. Yeah.
But I thank you for being here with me.
I'm sorry I nearly had an on-air heart attack. I'm sure
that's okay.
I'm
going to send you the life-changing magic of tidying up, because even though you're clean, there's something that's not tidy in that closet. I'm telling you.
Well, there is now.
It just had to go. Wow. Goodbye. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah.
This is the end of our first season of the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast. We began and ended with the lovely Miss Zoie Palmer. We are very blessed, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, we will.
In the future. Mwah. Love you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Spotlight. And boy, do we have a very special guest today. I cannot think of a better person. Oh no, here comes the tears, guys. Already. Okay. I cannot think of a better person to close out season 1 of the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast with us, other than the woman you are about to meet. Doing this podcast without her voice would not feel complete, as in my mind, she is Bo. The character that I was so fortunate to play and the world that I got to play her in was born from the brilliant mind of this woman. I cannot wait to chat with the brilliant Michelle Lovretta. Welcome, Michelle. Hello. I am so excited to see you, first of all. And Lost Girl fans listening are so fortunate. I think they will know how fortunate they are to meet you. I feel like you live in a tiny fairy house in the forest and that you fly out with fairy dust around you and you've landed here right now. Is that what happened?
It pretty much feels like that. Yes. Yeah. I am a bit of a hermit, as you know. I avoid crowds and human beings. So, but not so you.
You've done lots of conventions then.
No. Oddly enough. So you and I did a couple at the very beginning, and they're always fun. But they're exhausting. So unless it's something that I contractually I tend to not do them, but I've missed you and I've missed your beautiful face. And so a chance to sort of just catch up has been delightful to me, and I couldn't say no.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I have some questions for you.
Awesome.
So I truly have always thought of you as Bo. Can you tell Lost Girl fans about Bo's origins, how you went about creating this character, and how you went about creating the world of Lost Girl? I know that's a big question, but I will give the floor to you. It's very layered. But how did this all start?
Well, Lost Girl started in the way all glamorous things do, in a mall food court in Toronto.
The best spot ever.
Like a cliche. So there was a lovely woman, a producer I knew named Karen Wucke. And we had worked together on a previous project. I think at the time it might have been Prodigy, or maybe the company had a different name at the time. I will preface all this by saying my brain will not have the perfect recollection of everything. So I'll try to remember 15 years later.
It's a long time ago.
It is a long time. So I was actually packing up and I was about to leave. I was living in Toronto at the time and I was about to move out of the country, move to the States. And Wookie said, let's go for coffee. And I said, cool, but it has to be fast. Again, getting on a plane. So we met in the food court and she started telling me that they had a project that they had tried to get going. I don't know too much about it, so I don't know how long it had been, but it died. They were like, we can't do anything with this, but there's two elements of it that we liked. And one of them was that it was a genre show. And the other one was that it had to do with sex. And so she said, could you come up with something original playing with those two elements? So that was like, let me think. Genre and sex. I mean, those were basically, it was really hard at the time to get genre shows made. Mm-hmm. And the idea of doing anything that dealt with sexuality or queerness way long ago in particular was not something that you ever had the chance to do. So this was an absolute gift to say, go play in that area. So I said, well, shit, I'm in the middle of, life-changing moving, but let's see what I can do. And I went home and I came up with, I'm not currently home right now, but I wish I was, because I'd run upstairs and try and find a piece of paper where I was like 10 to 12 new concepts, different genres. Some was horror, some was science fiction. And the one that I loved, but that I thought never in a million years would they pick, was yours, which was fantasy and a succubus. Very first time you and I met, when you were auditioning, we went into the bathroom and we started talking about how we loved fantasy. And we both loved that one book about fairies and elves when we were kids.
Yeah, I still have that book.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, but if you think back all this time ago, fantasy was something that was sort of looked down upon, and adult fantasy in particular. So the fact that they were like, yes, do the succubus one, I was like, holy shit, okay. And started on that sort of journey of being, well, how do we make a bigger world of this? Who are the people? Who are the characters? So that was sort of the first part of how the world started. But I think the second and most important part, which I hope you have always given yourself credit for, is just frankly you. Bo could have been a bunch of different things, even regardless of what I put on the page. She could have been somebody that was inaccessible, somebody that was arrogant. You came in, despite all the leather pants that we threw at you, and made her vulnerable. You made her sweet. You made her lovable. And that, I think, is always the alchemy of television and why I've stayed in it versus, trying books or things of that nature, because of people like you. You will take something that I create and all the other people involved in the show, the directors, etc. But you surprise the people who have a certain thing, a template in their head. You give it something more, and therefore we all get to play together. And that has always blown my mind, and something I've always been grateful for.
That means the world to me, really, truly. But it was on the page. I know I've told this story at conventions and stuff before. I don't know if you've heard it. When I first got the audition, I just saw the description of a story, which is like, she needs sex to survive. Like, I don't remember exactly what it said, but I thought, okay, all right, interesting. But then when I read the whole script, because I think I read the whole script before my first audition, which is rare. I can't remember, because usually you don't, right? You just have little bits and pieces. But I certainly read it before the screen test. But it was so like the last thing I saw on the page was someone who needs sex to survive. She's sexy, she's this. And that's what made it resonate with me so much. And so that really comes down to you, Miss Lovretta, because
and the rest of the call trading credits.
Yes, I know. Exactly. But yeah, it was all there. Every character on the page was just there. And it was a gift. It was a gift beyond a gift. You touched a little bit on this already, but what were the specific challenges in season 1 of getting the show made in terms of the content? I know you mentioned that genre was hard, particularly fantasy, but what about like the sexual content, all of those kinds of things? Were there any, I know that there were specific challenges to getting it made, but what was that like?
Well, there were a couple different challenges. So the first one was, how would I best describe it? Not structural, but television goes in waves, and the way television is made, the way it is bought and sold, goes through variations that people who absorb television, watch television, and are on the outside of television aren't usually cognizant of. One of them is that there was a period of time where shooting a pilot was the cool thing to do, even in Canada when we had no money. Yeah. So it was a brief window. And there also at one time in the States had been a particular thing where people wanted what was called, what the hell? It's not the premise pilot. It's
concept,
like a sample episode.
Okay.
So it was basically an episode somewhere in the season.
Right.
So we had a very strange scenario where, came up with the concept, sold it to the network, pitched it to them. They all loved it, but we thought it was just going to be a pilot, which is already amazing because I'm like, okay, great, we'll shoot it. That'll be fun. But they said, but make it a sample episode of the season. Now, I wanted this to be serialized. I wanted the episodic elements as well. I like the idea of investigation or something that, which is how you became a PI. Those things are fun, but because I was so intent upon using the series to sort of explore sexuality and relationships, chiefly from a female and queer lens, I wanted to make sure that was sort of what you were coming for. You know what I mean? If you were just dropping in, you get the investigation, but you were building this real world with real people, with real emotions. So when someone says, just pick a random spot in the season of a season you've never broken because you've never even written the first episode, that's a little challenging. So what I knew, at that point, I wasn't even sure if I was going to say it because I was living in a different country. So I was a little worried that this would not come out as feminist, that this would potentially end up in the hands of somebody, director or some otherwise, that did what you were talking about, which is she's a sexy lady doing sexy things.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, shit. So I wanted to make sure that when I wrote the episode that we played the Lauren dynamic as the one that had the heart in it. Because a lot of times what you were watching at the time was certainly on network television, when they would have sweeps week, the girl would kiss the girl.
Right.
And it was a stunt. And that's all it was. And the intent of the series was to very specifically push it away from it. And I wanted the people buying it to buy in immediately. So I came up with what became episode 8, which is start with the hot sex, but that's with the guy. And then switch to showing that your emotion, the fact that you felt so deeply betrayed by her, the one that you were falling in love with at that stage was Lauren. So I felt like that would establish some things. But when I did that, I didn't know we were going to shoot it. So when I got the call and they're like, oh, we ordered the series, I was like, oh, okay, awesome. The series is going. And they're like, and we're going to shoot that one as and we're going to shoot a pilot. But I thought they were going to pay for me to write episode 1. And the other one would be just kind of and instead they shot 8. That was the very first thing you ever shot.
Yeah, totally.
And so what that did creatively was 2 things. One, at that point, we were hoping to make the show a bit darker. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So you can tell it's a bit different, just slightly. And the other is that because the pilot was so good, you did such an amazing job, the director did an amazing job, they ordered the series, and suddenly I had to figure out everything that happens in order for that episode 8 to make sense. And at one point they thought that was going to be episode 3. And I'm like, I can't get her together with one and then the other and then break them up. So it became this really weird when we got the room together, this thing of trying to figure out how to put all the pieces together. But that was one of the challenges. And then I would say one of the wonderful things about making this show with the people I made it with and in the country that I made it in is that we didn't actually have any problems with it being gay, with it being female focused, or with it being sexy.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And not something I anticipated. I thought I was going to have to, get my dukes out and have a whole bunch of fights.
Yeah. I feel like we kind of, it fell into this period of time with all the right elements that we were kind of protected a little bit. Yeah. We had support and a little room. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was just, we were so lucky for all of those elements to come together.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it really kind of changed. You never really know when you're blessed with a scenario, you start to think that that's the way things are. And then sort of go out in the world and become less naive and start realizing that, as you say, it was just this lucky little bubble that we had. Things are better now, but there was, a period of time where if it hadn't been made in Canada, I don't know that it would have been made. That's my theory.
I agree. I agree too. Yeah. What are some of your best memories of working on the show?
Oh gosh. I'm a big fan of writers. I just think we're delightful, dorky people. So I really loved the experience of being in the room. We had a great room. Pete and Jeremy and Em, and just all of us being around, getting to be goofy. And then the other part of that is that once we actually got to production and we had, as a cast, you were all just really accessible, which was lovely. You know, I remember you guys would sometimes come in and just sit on the couch and watch some stuff. And,
yes. Yeah. We've talked about it. We've talked about it on the podcast because we remember that too.
Yeah. And it just, I loved Vanessa, like just having Vanessa Piazza on there. She was, I believe, run of show. So she was always sort of watching out those of us that would come and go. I think I fully left by, I was going to say episode 3, and it's a little early, season 3. I tried staying as long as I could, but I was not in the country at that time. So having Vanessa kind of be the person that was the thread throughout as well, working with Jay, that's great. It was, I think we all knew, without arrogance behind it at all, just with the gratitude. I think we knew we were making something special for a select group of people that don't often get told how special they are.
Yeah. You know? You're absolutely right. And one of the things I was going to ask too is like, did you know the impact of what the show would have? And I get asked that question a lot too. And exactly what you just said is kind of what I say too. It's like, did we know it would have impact? Well, no, of course not. But we knew that we had this lightning in a bottle moment. And we knew that what we were doing mattered. Did we know it would get out there the way it did? I don't know about that, but that's certainly how I felt about it. Yeah.
I would agree. I think that when you make something, especially because when you're with a good group of people, it's just like going to camp.
It is.
So we're all like, hey guys, let's put on a show. So you don't necessarily predict, and I think it would be foolhardy and arrogant to predict whether something will have staying power. Yeah. But all the things, I mean, it's my baby. So all the stuff that I put in there were things that were important to me as a person, as a woman. And I think that's one of the things that I was most grateful for. And I don't think that necessarily, this is fun shit about being, occasionally putting subversive shit in. Not every partner fully picks up what you're doing. They won't always understand. For instance, I had a fair amount of pressure and it was well-meaning pressure. It wasn't people being shitty at all, but from often directors, maybe some other elements as well, where they would try to put sexuality between you and Kenzie. And I was like, no. And they didn't understand why. And I was like, I had to go on these things where I was explaining bisexuality and the dangers of sort of portraying somebody who is omnivorously sexual in the sense of every single person that they encounter, which was sort of a very negative stereotype that was put into a lot of media at the time. I wanted to make clear that Bo can have and value platonic relationships. Mm-hmm. That who she is attracted to is not because of, first of all, everybody's orientation doesn't define how they interact with the world or with other people. You have your own version of who you are. So anytime I see something over and over in media that shows one particular thing, even if it's just, straight girls or straight men or whatever it is, I think we all have to look at that and say, why are we doing that? Why are we sending that specific message? So for this one, it was very important for me early on. It was also important early on that we had fun cheesecake, that everybody got to be sexy. Mm-hmm. That it wasn't all about, well, let's just show the sexy women. We could also show the sexy men. Totally. So just those things early on that I wanted to bake in to make sure that, and you can't control the messaging, certainly after you've left. But just to try and put some of those DNA things into the series.
Yeah. Well, it worked. It worked. The Kenzie Bo relationship was always what resonated with people so much was the sister aspect of it. That was the impact of that friendship. It was such a true, honest friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Michelle, I feel like, I've been to probably more conventions than you have at this point. Yeah. I have got to meet people up close and personal. I consider it a place of great honor to listen to people. People come from all over the world to wait in a line to have a minute and a half to tell me their story.
Yeah.
I really, really try to hold that space for them because I know how much, oh no, here comes the tears again, you guys. I know how much this character mattered to so many people. And so to end this spotlight, I feel like myself as well, as well as the fans of Lost Girl and of specifically of Bo, I hope that you know the impact of this show and specifically of this character. I hope you know the legacy that you've created and left for people. I hope that you know my deepest love and gratitude for trusting me with this role. Whew. And I hope that the world gets to keep hearing your voice as it is needed and held in such high regard for all who are lucky enough to feel it. Michelle Lovretta, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my life. Thank you for being part of the very end of season 1 of the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast, because it wouldn't have been the same without you at all. My deepest respect and love and gratitude. And I love you. I am grateful to you. I know everyone listening is too. It mattered so much to people. And I'm so honored to stand beside you with this character. Anyway, before I cry my head off, thank you for being here. Really, truly.
Thank you. And I don't know how best to say it, but because I am a private person, I haven't put out a lot of messaging to the world about what the show meant to me. There are a lot of reasons that it was a deeply personal show, multiple reasons. And I want to thank not just everybody who was part of making the show, but no show exists in a volume. And if the people who love and support the fans of the show, if they didn't keep this going, it wouldn't have the impact that it has. So that's also my thanks to you, the cast, to Emily, to everybody who does the things I just personally cannot do. I can't do all the crowds. I can't do all that stuff. It's not my chili. But I love that everybody does. And a thank you to everybody who finds the time in their day, in their calendar, to go to the cons, to show love to the world of our show. And I hope they can feel in every element of the show how much they are loved back in return.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And on that beautiful note, thank you, everybody, for listening to the finale of season 1 of the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast. We will be bringing you more. Oh my God, I don't know if I can handle it, but we will be bringing you more. We wish you the very best. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast, which is produced by Anna Silk, Rachel Skarsten, and Seth Cooperman, with theme music by our very own Blood King, Rick Howland. Please rate, review, and share the Lost Girl Rewatch podcast. This enables us to grow and to continue bringing you exciting new content every week. If you don't already, follow us on Instagram and on our YouTube channel at Lost Girl Rewatch. You can also subscribe to Patreon for exclusive bonus episodes made just for you and get early access to all of our episodes. Okay, Zoe, we are going to play a very quick game. Are you ready to play with me?
Never been more ready.
Okay, I'm putting The same urgency that was in episode 13, we're going to put into this game because there's going to be a 30-second timer on the clock.
Oh, God.
I am going to read lines from season 1 of Lost Girl, and you have to tell me which character said them.
Oh, dear God. All right.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. And go. What can I say? For me, sexual healing is a literal thing.
You.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, you better be careful because wolves mate for life.
Kenzie.
Dyson.
Oh, I thought she was talking about Dyson.
Holy shitballs, that was awesome.
Kenzie.
Less Gaelic wisdom, more looking for makeshift I can't talk. Makeshift surgical tools.
Kenzie.
No, that was you.
It was me? Oh.
Yes. You can stay with me tonight. You need more healing than Lauren's little needles can give you.
Oh, well, that's got to be Dyson.
I'm the insatiably curious human doctor.
That's Lauren.
And we went 53 seconds. So we did it.
We did it.
I don't know what we did, but we did it.
I only didn't know my own line, but otherwise I did okay.
You did okay. Actually, there's one more line. Who said this? Dude, I have sung my way into a lot of women's pants over the years, but I promise you, this was the most profound night of my life.
Kenzie?
Hale.
Oh.
He was the siren.
What did he say? I've sung my way.
I think I read all these lines very badly. I got so excited. I couldn't read them properly. So I take
nailed
responsibility. But I think you nailed it. And I think we rock.
We do.
You rock.
You rock.